Welcome to the Fellas Podcast, the ultimate Formula One podcast for fans by fans, where we discuss all the happenings in the world of Formula One. Now, let's get into it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the first episode of the second season of the Fellas Podcast. And this week, we're talking about the Grand Prix that happened in Melbourne at Albert Park. As always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And you can also follow us on X, Facebook, and Instagram, and also now on Bluesky at thefellas.bsky.social. Okay, guys, so talking about this Australian Grand Prix, what are your thoughts? Simon, I'm going to kick it off to you. I mean, the start, we have a lot to talk about. So let's talk about the start. Simon.
Man, what a race. It was exciting. The weather, of course, played a major role in the excitement. A lot of people were really getting into the race. And the part I loved about it was I had no idea who was going to win. I know we thought that the top three were going to win, but the weather played a really exciting role. I know we got a lot to talk about as far as some of the incidents that happened even before the race started, but I thought it was exciting. I love a race when I just don't know who's going to win.
Right. Ray?
Well, again, as you said, the weather was a key factor in the whole event, right? And because of that, we got to see some incidents from some people that we thought were kind of above that, and others that which I think would be kind of expected. It was the rain was a neutralizer, right? And and saying that also, we still don't know who the fastest cars really are in race pace because of this race. So but it made it for an interesting race, I'll say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the start, it caught a lot of people out. I felt bad for Hajar that he spun out on the installation lap, on the formation lap. Lap when they were going around, and I felt it for him. You felt the pain. I mean, he was very upset, and I thought it was nice that Anthony Hamilton kind of came over to him and gave him a little bit of that fatherly advice while he was walking back. But yeah, it's a tough break for him. So we'll see him at the next race, see what he can do. Hopefully he'll have a better showing then.
Yeah, but there was a lot of rookies that crashed, right? So you had Hajar that went out during the warm-up lap, which was, again, for him, probably the most embarrassing moment of his life, right? First race at Formula One race, probably family, everyone's looking, cameras, and even the cameras were following him back to the paddock. I was like, oh my gosh, give him a break. Yeah. But then you had Doohan that went out, not Doohan, Doohan?
Yeah, Doohan. Yeah, Doohan.
I was going back to my Duke days by saying Doohan, sorry. And then you had Portoletto went out, and then Liam Lawson. So 6 rookies. I think that was a record, if I'm not mistaken, having 6 rookies on in the first race, and 4 of them were gone during the race. I just thought that was telling of the weather playing a major role in what we saw yesterday.
Right. Well, I'll say this, Ray, right before. That's one of the things is that in watching the race, is one of the commentators said, and I could see it. It's a big step, we know, from F2 to F1, right? So there's a lot of that they have to get a handle on now driving an F1 car. But then when you throw the rain into the mix, that even compounds it even more, like the difficulty, because then they also don't know how these cars are going to handle in the rain. And, they're very twitchy, more so than an F2 car. So, the poor guys, like I said, for all of them, I hope, by the next race, they'll be able to give us a taste of what they can do. Ray, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, if you look at it's a street circuit, right? So a street circuit, I would venture to say that Australia probably used pavement that would be a combination of street circuit and track. But I think like the paint that was on that demarked the street circuit, I can speak from experience. When paint gets wet, it's slippery, right? So it could cause you to have some incidents, right? Because your tire's not up to coming up to temperature depending, right? And so again, with that, and you applying a little, acceleration to it, it can cause what we saw, right? So it's tough, right? Because nobody wants to be last. You want to be quick, but you got to find that knife edge that you can run on, right? Put the car the car that you're in, and that's kind of what I think caught some of these people out, right? Caught out the rookies, and some other people also. So it's it's a service. It's the surface of the how the surface is made that they're racing on, right? And that brings the allure because it's street race. People can get to it, so that's part of it.
Well, I know there was mention. Yes, we know Albert Park is a park. It's a public roadway that they use, and the paint that they use to demarc lanes or what have you is just normal paint like they would use on the roads. But for F1 tracks, that paint is not as slippery when wet, so maybe it has some additive in it. So yeah, that definitely caught them out. But that's part of it. I could see that when you're going on to the power, if your rear wheels are on that paint, you're gonna, in addition to the slipperiness of it being wet, you get a added. It's compounded by the fact that paint is also very slippery. It's almost like ice. But okay. So
I'm wondering.
Go ahead.
But I'm also, just real quick, I'm wondering if, as a rookie and you're trying to figure things out, there's so much to learn, right? It's your first race. There's so much to learn, even without rain, right? You're learning the steering wheel. You're learning your new engineer. You're learning all the things about the car. You're probably trying to stay on race line, where when it rains, you have to find the most driest patch of pavement possible, right? So I think, it's probably a good lesson for the rookies for the first race to be a rain race, because you still have, 23 other races to go. And I think they'll make up for it. But yeah, I felt bad. It was funny. I was actually texting someone during the first couple of events of the race. The race didn't even start yet. And I was like, oh, that's one rookie gone. Oh, that's two rookie gone. Oh, that's three. Before you know it, we only had two rookies left. So I thought that was telling.
I'll say it this way. Formula One is like life, with the exception of you have all these cameras on you. So what this shows for those guys that crashed out like that is they need to gather themselves up and be ready, clear that out of their minds, so they're ready for the next race, so they can put their all into it. The sad part is that everyone can see you messed up, just like what we said with Hajar when he's walking back. He can have a quiet moment. The cameras are going to hound him. That's added pressure on top of learning the car, added pressure on top of learning the car in the wet, all this other stuff. So this is where it's going to show the mental fortitude of these guys. And that's why they say going from F2 to F1, you're in the big leagues now. There's a lot of pressure, and not a lot of people. They're not going to give you a lot of breaks to make mistakes.
Nope. Too much money involved.
Right. You're going to
Louis Vuitton is involved, right? You got Louis Vuitton headlining the race before the race. I've never seen that before, where you had a brand name ahead of the title of the Formula One Melbourne 2025 race.
Yep.
Crazy.
So it's not. It's money. Right? Because just imagine how much money he dropped to get that change.
Of course. But just summing it up, that's why I'm saying with the rookies, this is where it's gonna show the mental strength, and that's what they have to gather themselves up, gather up and just get on with it. Like, okay, it happened. I learned from that. Let me move on, because my gosh, that magnifying glass, it's not kind. It's not kind. And if you keep doing it, you're gonna find yourself out of a seat. But okay, moving on. Let's move on to the start of the race. Ray, I'm gonna start with you. What are your thoughts? I thought it was an interesting start.
Well, yes, I saw Oscar made his move, right? But he was then taken back again. But I thought it was, for me, to be honest with you, I thought the start of the race after it got started was like your typical wet weather race, right? Mm-hmm. And those drivers that have better wet driving skill, would bubble up and come up and do it. And with McLaren being the favorite for this race because of how they qualified, it wasn't as surprising to see, you know, the shift with them and Red Bull, right, and them going back and forth. So that part didn't really didn't shock me at all, right? Because those are capable, you know, even though, you know, regardless of what you say about Max is a good driver. You know, and meaning that he's an all-weather driver. He's an all-weather driver.
Right.
So, you know, and so you see it there, right? You know, and Piastri was the guy I was kind of rooting for in this go around.
Okay.
So
Simon?
Interesting start, right? I knew Lando, Piastri, Verstappen, they were going to get off, and it was going to be a little tug and war on who was going to get first, second, or third. Seems like Verstappen was able to maneuver his way around Piastri. But the one that surprised me and the one that disappointed me at the same time was Leclerc and Lewis almost hit each other on the first turn. That pushed Lewis back 2 spots and Leclerc up 2 spots, right? In my mind, they need to start working together, and I'm sure they will in the future. But that should have been both of them pushing up 2 spots, in my opinion. Knowing, but it's wet. Okay. I gotta put the practical side of my brain on and say it was wet. Things are happening so fast. But Lewis lost 2 spots right out of the gate, which was a little disappointing. But yeah, Verstappen got his spot, which I thought he was. I was actually happy he didn't get first place. Right? I just assumed he was going to pass Lando, and then Piastri was going to go behind him, and Lando was going to be third again. But Lando showed me that he did learn from last year, and he's going to be fighting. He won his first race that he started. I think it's the first race that he qualified first for and won. He's never done that before. So this is good for him. Set the precedent very early. Good start. Now he's got to continue and finish it. We'll see what happens in China next week.
Yeah, I'll say this. Yeah, I was impressed with Lando. I saw how he covered Piastri on the start because Oscar was trying to come up on the inside. Lando moved over, covered the line, and held on to first place. And I was also impressed on Max jumping on top of Piastri and getting that second place from him, which, I mean, I'm not surprised. He's a world champion, you know, like, and he's an excellent driver. But I was impressed by that. The thing with Lewis and Charles, no, I view it as that's Charles saying, this is my team, right? And I'm going to beat you. So he put his car where he wanted to put it because it's all about a statement. Right? What did I say in the last episode we had before the start? I said, I'm not so much concerned about whether Lewis wins in the first 5 races. I didn't really think that's possible. I'm more concerned of, is he finishing ahead of Charles? And that's what we saw in the reverse. Charles like, no, I'm going to finish ahead of you, right? This is my team. And I'll just say it a little early. Not a good showing from Lewis so far. So we'll move into next race and see how that goes. But not a good showing. And the other part about the team comments we'll take up later. But yeah. So anyway, that was my idea of the start. I think that was the highlight for me.
I think that's what your statement. It doesn't have. I don't know if you consider the whole context of what happened, why that happened. But that's all right.
With Lewis and Charles?
What? No, with the back to what they're saying. Yes, fact. It's not a good showing from Lewis, right. And I'm on board with that. But there's things behind it that I believe, contributed to the showing. And we can talk about that later.
I'm certain of it.
Yeah,
but in the end,
yeah,
this is the way I would have looked at it. Yes, there are things that contributed clearly, but your goal is to, at least if you can't beat him, finish right behind him. Be close. You couldn't get past the Williams. Right? Yeah. And okay, so we'll touch on it. You couldn't get past the Williams, and I'm going to say this. I understand you're in a new team and you have to learn, and there are other factors that we may not know about. But, you know, I got to flip on the other side. You're a 7-time world champion here. So I'm saying next race, I'm hoping he's better. It's a better performance to get on top of whatever it is. because you're not a rookie. You know, you're not a rookie.
Okay.
Right?
So
I didn't see a stellar drive from Lewis at all.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, so I'll say this. I'll give Lewis 5 races to see if there's a change. However, we still have to factor in what the team does to contribute for that change, right? So I understand. Just as a fan and a fan looking, yeah, Lewis didn't show up good. Yes, fine. But, you know, digging a little deeper, there are other factors that may have contributed. Maybe Lewis just gave a safe race to just finish as opposed to crashing out. You know, just something.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, Ralph, if you don't mind, I think it's probably a good segue into race team decisions, right? Because I think that's where Ray is getting at, some of the team decisions, and we could probably start there with Lewis if you wanted to, Ray. But yeah, I think it was average. I think it was, he gave a B- performance, Lewis, right? I believe that is a factor of him not necessarily knowing the car, figuring things out. I'm sure you'll get into more detail, Ray, as far as what you heard over the airlines there. But yeah, I did not see him coming in the first race given an A+, and if it was A+, we would have been lucky. It was cherry on top. But he's a new engineer, knew everything, right? New car, knew everything, trying to figure things out. And you probably need seat time in the car. So those 57 laps, I'm pretty sure he figured some things out. And you guys know this. Anything that needs precision, there has to be some parts of it that are just instantaneous when it comes to your decision, right? You have to think about it. It's something that's natural, comes natural to you. You're going to turn the steering wheel, you're going to click on the gears, you're going to do certain things with the car that you don't have to think about. He's not there yet with the team, and he's not there yet with the car. So I think 5 races is definitely a good gauge to say, all right, he should have enough seat time in that car to create some natural instincts.
Ray, what do you think?
Well, yeah, Simon hit the points, that I was going to hit, because again, from one of the commentary, I think it was from the F1 commentary, that they brought up to light, which is a true factor, that he's been with Mercedes for almost 10 years. So he's that way of operating has been ingrained in him, right? So now he's coming and has to adjust to this new way of operating, right? I listened on the radio. There was a point he said to his race engineer, "Don't talk to me so much," right? So these are other factors that need to come in. He asked about when they came back in after the second crash, they came back in. He asked the engineer, "How's the other car doing?" The front end, because the engineer said, "Hey, no." He said to the engineer that my front end is not holding, right? It's not gripping. He asked, what about the other engineer? The other car. And the engineer took a while. Instead of it being a response, like an instant response, like the engineer was already thinking about it a step ahead of him. It seemed like he had to go then ask the other team. So how, what was the report from there, right? So these are the things that I think, to put it more into context, that he's fighting to overcome, to get that flow so that he can deliver, right? Even when he was in the pen, he said the back end is a bit twitchy, right? So again, twitchy back end, rain, and power. We saw 6 of them, right? Or, we saw people. Even Alonso went out, right? Seiss went out. Seasoned drivers went out. So on a tricky surface. So I think, yes, disappointed that he didn't come. And yes, Shaw did stamp a statement by going around him, but Shaw's been there, and Shaw understands the car. He understands the people understand him, right? So he's just walking in new with a big title. He's not even coming and being underestimated, right? Like he's a rookie. He's a 7-time world champion. Well, it should be 8-time world champion coming in. And, he is, everybody expect him to just come, boom, and take it up like that. And that's not a realistic expectation, right? So you got to give him some time to settle on in and see what's going on. And then try to gel through that. And again, Ferrari's not known for their strategic calls. And I'm just going to leave it at that. You know
No, don't leave like that.
No, don't leave it.
We all know that in the last 2 years, Charles and
Carlos.
Yes. Yeah.
with them while they were driving, right?
Yeah.
And now they may have worked through those kinks, but we both know with the rain, now they got to think on the fly. Heck no, I didn't expect too much of the team. I thought it was just going to be Charles and Lewis figuring it out.
Right. Because they had the opportunity, right, when McLaren, when the two McLarens went off, right, including with Verstappen, and when Piastri was still stuck, they had a chance to bring Lewis in. Instead, they let him to go be the leader of the race, and it's just like, dude, it was too wet for slicks at that point, So forget about that. Why not pit with one of the front runners so that you can go out with the front runners and then do a real challenge, right?
Yeah.
Again, I didn't recall where Lewis was on, where Lewis was on track, but I think there was he was in respect to the pit in. I think there was still time for them to have him come in and let's do it. But they weren't ready. They weren't, as to your point, not thinking on the fly. They didn't have their guy. The tire guys probably were still sitting out, so they didn't even have the right tires to come up. So if he showed up at the pit, everybody would be still waiting on him. But the question is, would that wait time would it still be different because you would have gotten to the better tire sooner, right? Instead of going the whole lap coming around. So
they were looking at the kangaroos in the backyard.
Yeah. So
they should have pit Verstappen and he would have came right out behind Verstappen. Verstappen was in first place. Of course, there was like 12 to 16 seconds between them, but you wouldn't have came back. They wouldn't have come out 8th and 9th or 10th. They would have came out maybe 5th or 6th.
Yeah.
Well, I can see. Yes, it's a steep learning curve for Lewis, right? Even so that he told his race engineer was trying to tell him things how to manipulate the car, and he's like, leave me to it, so that relationship has to. He and Bono, they were like, the same mind. Now you have this guy, and the guy kept coming back in. I was like, didn't he tell you a few laps ago? Like, leave me alone. Why are you back on? Telling him something about the car. But, to that, but to that, I give Charles, he won this one. As far as the inter-team battle, he won this one, and so we'll see.
Lewis didn't do that bad in comparison to him.
Yeah, but it's weight, man. 7-time world champion. No, sorry, 8-time world champion coming in. Charles never been a champion, right? So the public is looking at it. He should come in and dominate right away, right? So
I wouldn't say, again, I'm not saying dominate right away. Like, I'm not. But my expectation was if you can finish right behind him, and I don't mean way down, like right behind him, you're doing good. But I understand what you guys said. It's true. There's a lot that, we don't know. And he had, the hill is steep. The hill is steep.
All right. So I got to punch on that. You brought it up, so I got to go there. Okay. The pass that Piastri threw on Lewis was, well, I would say this. It was the way Piastri executed it. It's pretty good, but it was risky because he was offline in the wet. Because when he went by, right, he braked, and I listened to the radio, listened to his, I heard his in-car, and it's like he didn't go right back to throttle right away. Like he coasted through part of the corner and then went back to throttle once the car was straight. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that was a risky move, but Piastri was throwing, caution to the wind because he wanted, he felt bad that number one, he was so far back, my opinion, that he was so far back because he knew it was his race to win because, as you said, he was quicker than Lando. And he was going to eat Lando up until they threw across the thing, hold position, right? And you can see that it threw him off. A couple corners he went off because he was ready right at the point to strike. Right. So
this is still in the vein of team communications. We have to talk about McLaren, right?
Yeah.
So what's with that? Where they're saying hold positions, but then when he dropped back, then they're like, you can race. Come on, guys. I was praying for Piastri to close down the gap again. I wanted to see if they came back out with that team order. I'll say it that way because I was like, wait a minute. And Oscar said it right. He goes, yeah, I'm faster, but okay. So
what are you guys saying? That they want Lando to win over Piastri at Piastri's home race?
No. I'm saying this. I'll say this. I'll throw this in there. Zach wanted to make sure he had 2 cars come across that finish line and not one, right? And if that, since Lando was there, he was like, you know what, leave it. But we don't need to have 2 cars. You remember back, the Mercedes intro when Hamilton took out Rosberg in the race. They don't want that type of thing happening. So they're just like, hey, but
all right.
that's my I think looking at possibly from the team perspective. Well, you guys go ahead.
No, I think you're right. But hey, it's treacherous. It was treacherous out there, right? With that rain. So you don't want these guys scrapping out there and then take each other out, and then Max cruises to an easy win, Right. So from a team point of view,
that's the worst case scenario.
That's
right?
the worst case right there.
Worst case scenario. Max winning.
From a team perspective, hey, slow it down. But it's tough. But I'll say this: I was fine if they said when they said, let's hold station, right? Finish.
Yeah, I was fine with it too.
I was fine. I understood where. What got me was like, wait a minute. So now he dropped back, and now you're telling him to race. What's that?
Yeah.
Right? What's that? Make up your mind.
And maybe again, we weren't in the car when they were communicating and hear all the context of everything. Right. But yeah, it's to me it was
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry.
I don't know. My camera just went crazy on that.
How do we have Humpty Dumpty in here now? Why do I see? Okay, go back, Simon. I'm sorry.
But no, I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay in the beginning. But yeah, let them race. Let them race.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I agree. So okay, moving from there to the end of the race. What are your thoughts? What you already mentioned, Ray? The pass. How Oscar basically drove around Lewis like he was a back marker in some low-level car. I mean, I'd have to go back. I don't know if people know, like he was driving a Minardi way back in the day that was just there taking up a grid spot. That's what he did.
No.
He took it like he was. Okay, I won't use street vernacular. I'll use it like a herb. Like he's just out there like some herb out there, drove around him like he was nobody. 7-time world champion in a Ferrari.
Well, I'll say this. Oscar at that point didn't give a hoot about anything at that point because the move that he does offline in the wet, the tarmac was already known for not really, dissipating the water, right? And for what he did, he took a gamble and it paid off for him, right? He took a gamble and he could have taken out Lewis too, right? But he took a gamble and paid off for him because, Lewis came over, then saw him, didn't come over fully, and gave him room to go around the track, right? He could have played a max on him and just like, you go to the thing. He's either we crash or you get off the track, right? So he left him room because I think Lewis objective was to finish the race, right? And that is that's important, right? To finish the race. So we'll see. Listen, this was I'm going to use one of your words, Ralph. This was an anomaly. This race, right? And we'll see next week when they go to China, if it's dry, we'll see who is then, right? Because then if you won't have too much of the tarmac being impacting the performance, it'd be more down to the car and it'll be more down to the team and what they're, how they're aiding the driver in accomplishing the goal, right? But yeah, Oscar took it, because I had to play it back and I had to listen to the in-car. In racing, where you think you'd have picked up the throttle, he didn't, which was smart on his end because the car was still not pointed completely straight yet, right? So he just coasted it until it got straight. Then he picked up throttle and went, right? So, yeah, at that point, I think, if I'm, being, psychic, Oscar didn't give a damn. His day was already ruined. He didn't win for his people. He's like, whatever, bro. I'm just doing this.
It turned up the flame that he had. That's what it did. It turned it up. Simon?
I was just going to say, well, Humpty Dumpty's back, even though the wall's behind me. But the one thing that worried me a little bit was how Max was catching up to Lando in those last couple of laps. Yeah. I was a little worried. I was like, no, he can't pass him. But we'll see what happens in China. Because it seems like Red Bull was either sandbagging during practice.
Of course.
Or they really didn't have any issues with their car. Right?
Well, I'll say this, Ray. I'm sorry. I'll say this and then jump to you. I was impressed by Lando's drive with that pressure Max was putting on him. I was impressed because that drives like that is a world champion drive, right? Because Max was hounding him, trying to get him to make a mistake.
Yep.
And he held it together. I was very impressed with that. I was like, you know what, Lando, you string together more like that this season, you're on your way. You're on your way. Again, I believe it was the last episode, the preseason episode we had, where I said, Lando,
You got an earthquake out there, bro?
Yeah.
Everything's fine. I don't understand why. You guys heard something?
Lando needs to show Max that he's not afraid of him. And I think this drive, how he finished, is a start of that. I'm not afraid of you. The only other thing is that if he decides to, he has to also show that he's able, if he's behind Max, that he can pass him. But I think he's well on his way. I was very impressed.
Yeah, awesome. I agree. Lando's drive was stellar, right? And he even said it in the pen that he was under pressure from Max and all that stuff, and he held it together, right? And that's important, right? That's important. So we need to. I give him props for that. I'm not taking away anything from him for the drive that he put down. It's just a shame that the things happened to Oscar to see what was happening, to see what the potential outcome would be,
right? If
those things didn't happen to Oscar. So,
right.
and again, in the dry will be good. Dry's on.
Right. Carmel Humphreys, totally agree. If Oscar wants that preferential treatment to hold position when he's in first, qualify on pole. You're right, and I have to say this with a question mark. That may be what the thought of McLaren. Lando got pole, so they're going to give him the preferential to hold it. No. But I'm speculating, right? I'm speculating here. Carmel threw that out, and I kind of see where he's coming from. But we just don't know where McLaren's coming from yet. Because, again, if they told him to hold station and they stuck with that, that's what they're thinking. But then when he dropped back a little, you're free to race. That's ambiguous. That one is, come on, guys. Come on. Get it together. But I agree with him. If Oscar is on pole, then I would expect that he can hold it. That might be their thinking. You don't agree, Ray? Go ahead.
No, because again, we have watched numerous races where the world champion for that season did not qualify at the top, right? Because it's just one snippet in time. However, during the race, they're able to come back through and establish themselves, right? So I think, if a team were to take that stance, I think it would be detrimental to the team to say, well, if you don't qualify on pole, right, you can't be the guy that's always in front, right? And you would not, because there are situations where they've gone back through where the guy qualified in full for whatever reason in the race, they didn't have the same pace, where the guy that didn't qualify on pole had better pace.
Can I interject?
Go ahead.
I hear what you're saying, but for the first race, Oscar winning pole, Piastri home race, Oscar and Piastri had the pace over everybody, even Verstappen. They were leaving Verstappen at one point. Verstappen was like 10 seconds behind. So if Oscar's mindset, well, I won pole, I am going to maintain my tires, whatever tires you can maintain with the wet tires. But Oscar's like, no, this is my home turf. I'm going to try and win it. And he's being a little bit more aggressive. Then yeah, I as the manager of the team, be like, hell, hold on, Oscar. Lando's not being aggressive right now. He could pick up the pace, but he's not. We're maintaining. We got pace over everybody else. Let's just win 1-2.
Yeah.
And it comes down to the last 5 laps, then race it out. No, but it was too early for them to start battling, in my opinion. It was way too early. In a wet conditions? Nah. To me, it's just way too early.
Hold up, man. So you're trying to tell me, if I'm hearing you correctly, it has to be a particular segment of the race, right, for you to be able to attack and go. No,
from a team strategy standpoint.
I'm not on board. I'm not on board with that. I'm not on board with that because that is, again, we've seen it in past races over the past seasons, where again people qualified in one position, but the other person turned up to be better. We even heard of the radio, right? Tell Charles that he needs to speed up because he's holding me back. Right, you even got one. I think what's his name did it to Lewis also. Russell.
Yep.
Yeah. Said, hey, tell Russell, tell Lewis, he needs to pick up the pace, right? And so these are the things that I think that, you can't put rules around it like that, because you're killing the talent of your drivers, right? Because I think you're going to be up with, not able to get the best quality drivers because they're going to say, if your team runs that way, if that's a strategy he's adopting, then people are going to say, maybe I don't want to run for you. I want to run for somebody else. Because again, qualifying is just one step at a time. It's one lap you need to get right? But a race is a race. It's many laps that you can orchestrate stuff over.
Exactly, Carmel. And so he agrees with me. So what I'm saying is that first race, we're beating Red Bull. We have the pace. Let's wait to the last couple of laps. Then you guys duke it out. But let's not crash with 30 laps left to go. Red Bull wins and we both lose out, right? And the conditions didn't give them an opportunity to really duke it out. If it was dry, Ray, I totally agree with you. But it's the first race of 2025. It's not in the middle of the season.
Well, you know what? I'll just sum it up this way in a sense. I understand your point of view, Ray. I understand that. And I didn't have a problem with them saying whole station, right? It's because of the weather. And just like Simon said, you have a 1-2, that's what you want. I had no problem with that. I understood it. I was like, that's cool. What I didn't understand is why, when there was a gap, now you're telling him to race. You should have left it that way. Your driver is not going to hang out back there. Of course, he's going to try to close up back to, Oscar's going to try to close up to Lando. I just felt like when they came back and gave that other command, you're free to race. Again, I that's where I have a problem. I'm like, no. But you said over here, whole station. So he's going to close that gap up. You could come up. Why the other order? That's the only problem I have. But yeah, hey, if I was Zach Brown, I was like, 1-2 is what we want. Bring it home.
I would like to just say one last thing, and I'm going to let it go. Right? These drivers are seen as the world's best drivers in the world. They can't handle a little rain. Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah. That they need to have training wheels put on top of them? Come on, man. Then Formula One is not what it's cracked up to be.
No, okay.
Because these guys are they are touted as the best drivers in the world, the pinnacle of racing, right? And they're the pinnacle of pinnacle drivers because they're part of the Formula One family. Right. They can't run in the rain. Oh, come on! You have to reevaluate that.
Well, tell that to Fernando Alonso, and I'll listen to what you have to say because he crashed out in the rain.
Yeah, because he made a mistake. Yeah, but he made a mistake. He went to throttle on the wet when the car was loaded. And I'm not saying they're infallible, but they need to race because they are the pinnacle drivers.
Take the chance when you're in the lead and you got a 10-second.
Then it's not racing. Sorry.
Well, all right. Well, I think we've gotten our points out. We've gotten our points out on that. So we have the next race in China. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Hey, I'm gonna hope it's not a wet race. I want to see some like dry weather racing and see how everyone, how everything falls out. But I did enjoy this race. I did enjoy it with all the whatever. Even like I said, being a Lewis fan, I'm still a Lewis fan, but I'll be critical with at times. But I understand the points you raised, Ray. I'm not necessarily a Max fan, but I respect his craft, and he is a world champion, and he deserves, his titles, right? Well, right. He deserves his title. So I'll leave it at that. Lando, I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for Lando. I would like to see him really assert himself. And hey, I'm going to also say it, Oscar as well. But I do feel what happened here, even though a lot of people were caught out, even Max, Oscar still has a lot to learn. He still has to mature into it. He's quick. He's good. But it might be Lando's time. It might be Lando's championship to lose, put it that way, this year. Because I think he's, judging from this race, I think he's really done some internal work, and he stepped up that confidence he's had with that drive. I was very impressed again, like I said, with the way he handled Max's pressure. But anyway, any predictions for the next race, Simon?
You guys are going to laugh at me. I'm going to think Charles is going to win next race.
Okay. Who's second?
I'm going to say Lando and then Piastri.
Okay. Ray?
You know what? Yeah, I think I kind of go with I'll say it's gonna be McLaren, probably Piastri, then Lando, and Max is in the mix.
Okay. I'm gonna, even though I'm not a fan, I'm gonna think it's Max. It's gonna be Piastri and Lando. That's my prediction. So with that, please join us next for the next race in China. Again, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date on all things the fellas. Have a good evening. We'll see you next time.
Hold on. Hey, everyone. Just know that we're going live in our races this season. So if you want to come in and chat with us, like Carmel did today, come on and chat with us. We'll love to hear what you have to say.
See you next race. Take care.